Chapter 8, Queen endgames. For the human eye, they sometimes look difficult to master and very complex due to the many move options of the mighty queen. But I hope that there are some guidelines and typical motives which help you to navigate the ocean. I want to concentrate mostly on queen and pawn versus queen and deal only briefly with the queen endgames with more pawns. As I hope here are some graphical guidelines which you will not forget and which are helpful. Carlsen Gashimov, black to move. Okay, here I think without the guideline it's not really possible to find the draw. King, where shall black's king go to? And king b3 is right, because the main drawing zone is in the corner which is furthest away from the rook's pawn, and this would also be valid for a knight's pawn. But for a bishop's and central pawn there are no such far away drawing zones. The reason is that if black's king reaches the zone, then white's king must now, or the main winning strategy would be with the king to go to a neighboring file or rank. But here it is just too far away. White's forces would be drawn away too far. White couldn't keep full coordination, and so it doesn't work. It is a draw. And this would also be valid for our knight's pawn, but there it is more difficult to defend, to understand the principle. But the principle is the same. Okay, one sample line to show, to illustrate the point. The king starts the march to the third rank, shielded by the queen. But okay, it's already seen a bit that white has some difficulties to keep the full coordination. But okay, the king is still on the way. Yeah, but somehow it doesn't work. It is just too far away from the h pawn. So this position is a draw, as the guideline predicts. You, of course, should play on as attacker. That's clear. But without the guideline, it would be, I think, impossible to find this plan to run into the direction of a1, because, of course, it looks not very logical with the natural feeling of space and so on. So it makes sense to know the guideline of the drawing zone in the corner which is farthest away from the pawn. Here the south, with the pawn on h7, it's obviously the southwest corner. While in the game, Gashimov played king d3, and now Magnus Carlsen applied the typical winning strategy. King c2 would be better, but as black's king is just outside the zone, it's just one square outside the zone, it is lost. But not so easy, of course. Okay, after king e2 it's easier. Now the way is not so far. The king has already reached the neighboring file, and now Magnus converted. Here the disadvantage is already seen. Queen b8 check, b4 check, d6 check are all met by counter check on the e file, so this is the only remaining check. And now it's difficult. Queen e3 check is not possible. Queen e6, so this check must be played. E file checks doesn't work, so this, and now, yeah, now it's over. Magnus has reached the aim. And if there is no good check left, then the attacker usually wins, as the queen is so mighty, and here it's directly clear. And with two queens it must be direct draw by whatever, stalemate or direct perpetual check. But here it's obvious that this is not the case, and so Magnus Carlsen won the game, as now he has counter checks on the f file. Yeah, so this is very important, the very, very important guideline, I think, and I like these kind of guidelines, of course, because yeah, I think humans can remember them very well, but it's not so easy to remember all these concrete sequences of moves. Yeah, with an H pawn or a G pawn, you should either be with the king very close to the pawn, we will see in the next example, or in the corner which is farthest away, and here for H7 or G7 pawn, it would be the southwest corner, and if the king reaches it, then it is a draw, as a rule. Okay, so let's see one further example on this. Dominguez Paris, Hikaru Nakamura, FIDE Grand Prix tournament, Thessaloniki 2013. Here, Black's king is not very well placed. It's somehow in the middle of nowhere. So white can win here. King G7 or H5? Okay, this is not so easy. King G7 wins. Now Black's king is badly placed. Yeah, and this shows it. There are many counter checks, so the king can try to run away, but it is not quick enough somehow. The king has almost reached the drawing zone, but it is still outside, and white wins as a rule, and this is also correct according to endgame table base. Okay, the concrete lines are not so easy, I think. But the general rule is relatively easy to remember for humans. I think, yeah. Okay, so I hope you agree. Okay, H5 was a mistake. Now black has only one move to draw, but Hikaru Nakamura found it and then drew the game. King E5. This has two aims. Now the king can try to be close to the pawn or to run in the corner furthest away, farthest away. Now Queen C6, very strong. And after Queen G6, one sample line would be like this. And now Black's king is just in time. And yeah, the king, this is only sample line, of course, and I've chosen the sample line for this reason, of course. The king is now in time in the drawing zone, and it's a draw. Over the board, of course, in human games, the attacker also has not so bad chances to win. So you should definitely play on, and if in a pawn endgame you have a choice between this endgame and complete draw, then you should definitely choose this endgame. But theoretically it's a draw. Yeah. And in the game Nakamura also drew. And maybe, yeah, it was a bit easier for him here, as he now can defend with his king close. But okay, excuse me one second. Here in this moment, maybe Dominguez Perez could have played H7, and then it's again not so easy. The only move to draw is, so it's not really easy. The only move to draw is Queen H5. King E6. And now Black's forces are close enough, and now it's a clear draw. But okay, Queen H5 must be found, as for example King D6 loses. This is also typical. First improve the queen, then bring the king to the neighboring file as usual, and white wins. For example, like this. And yeah, the king is now very well placed on the neighboring rank. Yeah, it's over. Checks can be met by counter checks, so white wins. Yeah, in the game, Dominguez Perez played Queen G6, and yeah. Now Nakamura, of course, defended with his king close. This is also an example, but I wanted to show it as a second defensive method. Of course, the king can either try to run in the corner furthest away or to be very close to the pawn, like here. Yeah, and now it's a clear draw, of course. And after some further moves, the draw was agreed. Yeah. Okay, so I think you should remember two important points. So drawing zone in the corner, which is first away from an h7 pawn, and then as a whole it is a draw. As White's main winning technique to bring the king to a neighboring file or rank now doesn't work, as then his forces would be too far apart. And this drawing zone also exists with a knight's pawn, but it doesn't exist with a bishop's or central pawn. Then White's forces can manage it. They are still close enough to each other and win. In those cases, you must be with the king close to the pawn. And it also works here. This is the reason why king e5 is only a drawing move, as we in the game it was seen that black's king is still close enough to the pawn, and then hoping to reach a setup like that. Of course, that would be easier for humans to defend. Of course, with the drawing zone in the corner first away, it's a draw, and some games also end in a draw, of course. But in human games, sometimes the attacker also still wins, as it is difficult to defend this kind of position.